weight loss work, it's really not a weight loss workshop. So I kind of bait and switched you a little bit. So a lot of people will come. If you say weight loss, they want to show up for that. So it's not really a weight loss workshop, but it is a 6-week metabolic reset. So not specifically for weight loss, but if you follow the principles that we teach, you will lose weight, you will feel better, you'll have better energy and less pain and reduce inflammation and have better sleep. And more importantly, it helps to reverse or at least eliminate, reduce the risk of chronic disease. Because we are in a culture, a real true pandemic of chronic disease. That's really the big problem. So we want to talk about getting to the cause of that problem. So this statistic is from 2018. It was a study that was done in November of 2018 at UNC Chapel Hill, and they found that 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. So that means 12% of Americans have a healthy metabolism. And that was pre-COVID. So that was before we started binge watching Netflix, Uber Eats, gaining the quarantine 15, whatever that is for most people. So I would imagine we're in the 90 percentile of people that have unhealthy metabolisms. So as it stands now, 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women will get cancer in the U.S. About 5 out of 6 Americans will die of either heart disease or cancer, and they're largely preventable. It's estimated that 80% of cancer is preventable, over 90% of heart disease is preventable. These are all lifestyle problems. We know that about 1 million Americans will die, or 1 million people in North America will die of heart disease, just this year alone. That's 1 million people. Is that because they forgot to take their pills? No. They're going to take their pills, more pills than they've ever taken in their life, and they're going to die anyway. And we're going to take pills for high blood pressure and pills for cholesterol and pills for reflux and allergies and asthma and pills for autoimmune disorders and erectile dysfunction and infertility and skin problems, and we still keep getting sicker and sicker and sicker every single year. So the spending on the U.S. healthcare system is really pretty atrocious. So right now we spend $4.1 trillion, that's $12,000 per person per year just on healthcare, and that represents about 20% of our GDP. So that means 20% of every Starbucks coffee, 20% of every automobile, 20% of every pair of jeans is spent purely on our sickness and our illness and our disease. So that number is, and that's a couple years old, so obviously that's continuing to climb. Most industrialized countries spend like 3%, maybe 6% of their GDP if it's bad, and we're up above 20%. So where do you think we rank in terms of health when it comes to the other industrialized countries? Do you think we're way up there at the top, middle, bottom? Yeah, we're dead last. So we spend the most by far. We take the most drugs. We're about 5% of the world's population. Guess what percentage of the world's drugs we take? At only 5% of the world's people, what percentage of all the world's drugs do you think we take? It's about 80%. So we're taking 80% of the world's drugs at 5%. And it'd be one thing if that was making us healthier and we had less disease and less, even our infant mortality is abysmal. Those are babies that make it to their first birthday. We're down with like Cuba and Nicaragua when it comes to babies that make their first birthday. And that's not smoking, diabetes, and chronic disease. It's literally just our system is broken. We're literally lifestyling ourselves to death. So these are expenditures per year, or actually heart disease is $592 million, cancer is $658 million, diabetes is almost $900 million, obesity is $474 million, arthritis $383, Alzheimer's, which we now know is being called type 3 diabetes. I don't know if anybody heard that before because they know the association with blood glucose and insulin insensitivity is actually causing Alzheimer's and dementia, so they call it type 3 diabetes. That's $836 million per year. And just the fractures from osteoporosis alone is over $50 million per day. Per day. We spend that per day in this country, and we still continue to get sicker and sicker and sicker. So the question's why? Why is this happening? And I think it's really mainly 2 reasons. The main reason primarily is the system is broken. We live in a system that tells us that you're a victim, you don't really have a choice, because there's no money in healthy people and there's no money in dead people. So the money in the system is people that are sick or suffering or see themselves as a victim and rely on drugs and medications and continual doctor's visits. So we're completely disempowered about our health. So that's, if you want to fix the healthcare system, we need more people less sick. That's really the solution. And the other reason is because we're literally marketed to death to believe that our choices don't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you eat the donut or the apple because it's just your genetics. Because if you have good genes, then you're going to live a long, healthy life. And if you have bad genes, well, you're kind of done for, right? Well, we know that 5% of your health is dictated by your genes. Now, that seems a surprise for most people because they're looking for the breast cancer gene and the diabetes gene and the Alzheimer's gene and the obesity gene. But when you look at the studies and the data, 2 to 5% of your health outcomes are dictated by your genetics. If you look at Okinawans, you guys know Okinawa, that's near Japan. When they come to the U.S., because they have very low rates of cancer and heart disease and diabetes, when an Okinawan moves to Franklin, guess what happens to their rates of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease? It goes through the roof because they start adopting our lifestyle so they get our same diseases. We are digging our graves with our forks, and we're literally burying our body or covering our casket with fast food wrappers. And that may seem harsh, but that's the reality of what we're doing in this country. So it's a lifestyle problem. But you got the CDC, the Centers for Deceit and Corruption, I think is what that's called, or Centers for Cronyism and Deception or something, I think it's called, the FDA, all the other alphabet letter public agencies, you know, big food, big pharma, big sugar. Do they want us to be healthy? No, they want you to be a customer. Their obligation is to their shareholders, not to the people that they give their products to. So they're in business to make sure you keep continually taking their products. Clicker trouble. So, metabolic syndrome. So this is kind of the biggie, far more of an issue than COVID or any other virus that we deal with. Our real true public health crisis is in metabolic syndrome. And if you look at the 5 components of metabolic syndrome, you have visceral obesity, insulin resistance, hypertension or high blood pressure, high triglycerides, and low HDL, which is your quote-unquote healthy cholesterol or your good cholesterol. So those make up metabolic syndrome, but then they lead to the diseases of metabolic syndrome, which are heart disease, and these are just a few. Heart disease, lipid problems, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, dementia or type 3 diabetes, cancer, PCOS, or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Those are the things that drive us in that direction. And this is 100% preventable. And I know 100% sounds kind of outlandish, but 100% preventable and mostly reversible. If you can catch it in time and you apply the right lifestyle factors, we can reverse a lot of those syndromes. The problem is, that's why I didn't want to call this a weight loss workshop, because have you ever seen a reunion show for The Biggest Loser? You guys know The Biggest Loser? Do they ever do a reunion show? No, because what happens after they come off The Biggest Loser? They go right back to where they started, because you can do excessive caloric restriction and high intensity exercise and you can lose all the weight you want, but if you don't change the metabolism and change the underlying habits, the weight just comes right back. I talk to people all the time, they're like, yeah, I lost 100 pounds. I lost 20 pounds 5 different times. Like, we've all heard those stories. So how do we get it, keep it, and make it stay off for the long term? So here's all you got to do. Eat less crap and more food. So less carbonated stuff, refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, and processed food. Then you eat more fruits and veggies, organic proteins, omega fats, and drink more water. All right. Have a good night. Thank you. That's it. That's all you got to do. Like, we know the basics, right? That's pretty straightforward. But we're going to go a little more in detail than just that. So we kind of coined this. I thought I came up with this. I thought I was way smarter than I am. But I thought I invented this. But then I saw another guy using it on a podcast. I was like, great. So it's turning off your GPS. Because right now, most people's GPS is set toward diabetes and cancer and cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's and dementia and autoimmune disorders. We're literally skyrocketing toward all of those diseases because of a thing called inflammation. So inflammation is the underlying driver for every chronic disease that we worry about. It's either the direct cause of the chronic disease, or it's a major factor and major player in the progression of the disease. So if you can fix inflammation, then you can fix your risk factors for all those diseases. It's really, really that simple. But the mechanics of it aren't all that simple. So the G stands for grains or gluten. Like, those are, And we're talking about grains. It's sort of an umbrella category. So you have your breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, chips, pretzels, cookies, bagels, muffins, pastries, oatmeal, and corn. Yes, oatmeal. I'm sorry. Like everybody's like, oatmeal? God. Corn, even corn. I know. Well, they're going to start putting in our gas tank pretty soon, so we won't have any to eat, so who knows, right? But yeah, it's all those things because they convert so quickly to sugar. Because when you eat a piece of bread, whether it's Wonder Bread or whole wheat bread, how quickly does that bread turn to mush? Almost instantly, right? There's amylase in our saliva that breaks that bread down into essentially sugar. Before it gets to the middle of our throat, it's already turned into sugar. Now, you guys know the glycemic index? You ever heard of the glycemic index? Do you know what's higher on the glycemic index? A piece of wheat bread or a Snickers bar? So whole wheat bread or a Snickers bar, which one turns to sugar quicker?
Whole wheat bread.
Whole wheat bread. So you're really better off eating a Snickers bar than eating a piece of whole wheat bread. Here's another one for you. What about a piece of white bread or table sugar? Which one turns to sugar quicker? White bread or table sugar?
Sugar.
White bread. White bread turns to sugar quicker than table sugar turns to sugar. Look it up. If you don't believe me, Google it, look it up. That's the truth, because our diet is literally inundated with all these foods. It's all we eat are these processed foods. We had a lady that went to Peru, somewhere in South America. She went there for a month, and she ate all their food, all their bread, all their pasta, all their junk food, and she lost about 14 pounds when she was gone for a month. Then she came back to the U.S., and she thought she'd kind of dial it back because she was losing weight and feeling better. So she said, I'm going to get home and eat a little cleaner. So she came back home and gained all that weight back within a week, because the quality of the food in those countries is completely different than what we allow in this country. If you go to McDonald's in Sweden, it's a completely different Big Mac than it is in the U.S. because the ingredients, the lobbies, they allow these companies to put this garbage in. And then gluten and gliadin are kind of cousins. They're co-conspirator terrorists, basically. So gluten is a sticky protein that's part of the grain that causes intense inflammation. It destroys the gut bacteria, and it also permeates the intestinal lining. So it causes leaky gut. Some of you guys have heard of that thing, so that's a big part of what we're going to talk about tonight. But people say, what about, Jesus ate bread, right? Like that's all he ate, right? He broke bread, it was his body, right? Well, different bread, right? You remember the song Amber Waves of Grain? Amber, make me sing it, please. Those were like 7-foot tall, waving in the wind. Now we have this 18-inch GMO hybridized dwarf crop that's highly increased yield, high yield dwarf crop, which is not even the same product as the bread we were even eating 100 years ago, much less 10,000 years ago. So it's a completely different product. P, there's two P's. There's processed food and processed dairy. Now, I don't have to tell you that processed food is not good for you. Most people already know that. But the processed dairy, which we'll hit on in just a second, is a big player in that as well. And then the S, you know what the S stands for? Nope, strawberries. No, sugar. Sugar. So that's your GPS. If you turn off your GPS, or at least minimize those foods, or at least be aware of them when you're eating them, it'll make all the difference in the world. The problem is when you start reading labels, you start realizing like, oh my gosh, it's enriched wheat flour, that's sugar. Hydrolyzed soy protein, that's a processed oil. So you start reading the list. So the best thing is to eat food that doesn't have labels. Like apples don't have a label. Like most meats don't really have much of a label. Like eat foods that are found in nature. So commercial dairy, this is where half the room walks out. So milk does not do a body good because the traditional dairy is the sickest of the sick. So they don't get your healthy cows, they get your sick cows, and that's where you get your milk. You guys know Hillsborough Road? You know the Hillsborough Road cows? Like you drive down the road, you got this big field, you see these wonderful cows. They're basically smiling because they're walking around this massive field eating grass all day. Those are not the ones that make your milk. The ones that make our milk stand in a pen. They're usually caged in like a 3x6 pen with their head kind of stuck through, and they milk them constantly as they stand on a concrete slab. And they get so sick and fat because they feed them grain all day long. Because what happens to an animal if you give them grain? They get fat, like us. We're basically feedlot cattle. because we sit around and we eat grains all day and we don't move around very much and we don't get enough sunlight. So no wonder we get so sick. And then they have to get them antibiotics. Their milk contains a tremendous amount of pus. And then they do the one thing that it had some redeeming quality, which was actually the proteins and the enzymes and the healthy bacteria. Well, they completely ruin that by heating it up to 148 degrees, and it ruins the milk almost completely. So, what do? Ideally, stay away from conventional dairy. Mother's milk is best, but if mother is unavailable, then organic is a bare minimum. At least go organic, because you're getting rid of the hormones and the antibiotics. That's a better step. Hatcher's dairy is a little step above because they don't homogenize it. And then raw is going to be your best bet. You guys, anyone ever bought raw dairy? Like raw milk? Yeah. You have milked a cow? Because raw milk's illegal. Like it's illegal. It's illegal to buy raw milk in Tennessee. You can buy cigarettes, but you can't buy raw milk. So you got to do like a drug deal in the parking lot. You got to buy like 1/9,000th of a cow and meet your dealer and get your milk. So we just do like coconut milk, almond milk, cashew milk. There's all kinds of nut milks that are actually pretty healthy for you. So the myth is that we need more protein. And in some cases that is true. Some people do need more protein. If you're exercising or if you're a young growing teenager, a lot of times you need more protein. The trick is we need just enough protein. Because when we eat too much protein, the excess turns into sugar. So if you eat a chicken breast, it's like 50 grams of protein. Well, 20 of that is probably being turned to sugar because your body can only process so much at one sitting. So remember, how much protein do we need? You guys know the size of your palm, right? Size of your fist is your grains, but we'll talk about that. And then the excess protein, and the source is the secret. So at the top, you have your happy Hillsborough Road cows, the ones that are eating grass. And then you have the ones that are sick and depressed and that are eating that big pile of who knows what right there. And then you have your happy chickens, healthy chickens that are eating grub worms and vegetation, actually make very healthy eggs and healthy chicken sandwiches without the bread, right? So unhealthy chickens make unhealthy chicken sandwiches. So it's about the health of the animal. So the health of the animal is what makes all the difference. Now the problem is if you go to J. Alexander's or if you go to Chick-fil-A or you go to McDonald's or you go to name fill in the blank restaurant, you're getting all this stuff down here. It comes off the same truck. Do you guys know what this is, by the way? Yeah, it's a tilapia farm. Do you know what these guys are on top of the fish farm? That's the chickens. So it's a twofer. They take their droppings and they feed the fish with the waste of the chickens. So it's a nice 2-for-1. And don't ever eat tilapia, by the way. Tilapia is frankenfish. It's not even a real thing. Horrible. And then with this fish, they'll take it and they'll color it. They'll put a fake pigment, like a pink pigment, because wild caught is much prettier and juicier, and farmed comes out kind of gross. And so they have to add dye to them to make it look like it's colored. So healthy fats, because who was raised in that low-fat era? I was in that low-fat. We had low-fat ice cream, low-fat cookies, and low-fat milk, and low-fat blah blah blah. But we have more high-fat people than we've ever had in the history of humanity. Right? So it's not the fat that makes you fat, it's your body's inability to burn it. And actually when you eat healthy fats, it helps your body burn fat, which we're going to talk about in a thing called ketosis. So the best part is your grass-fed meats. And here's the dilemma. When you're in the grocery store and you've got like the grass-fed ribeye and you've got the conventional ribeye, they kind of look the same and smell the same and sort of mostly taste the same, right? But one's like $15 a pound, and the other one's like $6. It's like, I'll go with the 6, right? So if we eat food that makes us healthier, is that an investment or is that an expense? If the food makes you healthy, do we believe that? Or yeah, do we believe that or do we just say that because it's the right answer? Because all decisions are made at the point of purchase. It's like it's one thing to know it, but until you get to the checkout line of that grocery store, that's where the decision is made. It's all made at the point of purchase. So yes, when you're switching to organic or free range or you're going healthier, always switch your meats and your animal products first. So before you buy organic tomatoes, make sure you buy organic grass-fed free range chicken and beef. Why would we do the meat before the veggies? Do you guys know why it's important to do animal products first before the veggies?
Oh, seriously. I think because all the bad stuff is stored in the fat of the animal.
That's exactly right. So the age of the animal bioaccumulates, so a cow could be 7, 8, 9, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, 500, 600 pounds, where a tomato's just been sprayed once. And with the organic, by the way, don't ever buy things organic that have a skin on them. Like, don't buy organic bananas. It's the biggest waste of money. Unless you're eating the outside of the banana, then you got other issues. But if they spray the pesticide on a part of the fruit or vegetable that you peel off and you don't eat, then you don't really have to worry about buying that organic. Like, don't buy organic mangoes or organic avocados because you're not eating the outside where the pesticide lands. Now, apples, totally different ballgame. Strawberries, if you're eating an apple, you're biting into whatever was sprayed on it. And you can't wash all that stuff off. So that's the problem is at the grocery store. The non-organic apple is big and fat and juicy and looks like it's out of a Cinderella movie. And the organic apple, the healthy one, looks bruised. It's half the size, twice as expensive, and it looks like it's been kicked down the aisle a few times. So again, investment or expense, right? We'll keep harping on that. So anyway, your other healthy oils are your grass-fed butter and ghee, which is clarified butter. Avocados or avocado oils. Your tree nuts, almonds, macadamia, pecans, not peanuts. Peanuts are not nuts. They're legumes. They grow on the ground. They collect moisture. They get moldy. They're high omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, and they're highly allergenic. Aflatoxin is another part of that, which is a big deal. So your tree nuts are best. What's the best way to turn a good fat into a bad fat? What's that? Heat it up. So the best, most effective way to turn a good fat into a bad fat is to heat it up past its flash temperature. So these roasted cashews and these roasted almonds, and when you heat butter, so your low temperature oils are like your flaxseed oils, your olive oil and butter. Those are low temperature. And your high temperature is like your coconut oil and your avocado oil has a really, really high flash temp. Those are my two favorites. Coconut, you almost can't burn coconut oil up. I mean, it's like 400 plus degrees. So metabolic flexibility. So that is the name of the game. That's the thing that allows you to go long periods of time without having hunger or cravings. It allows you to lose weight, reduce inflammation, to be able to have dessert without completely sabotaging your whole dietary plan. It allows you to have some more leeway. We always say it's 80-20 rule. So you want to be 80% healthy and 20% American, right? So that was a joke, by the way. I've been told so many times how unfunny I am, but I can't stop trying. 80-20. So that allows you, when you're metabolically flexible, you can actually have a piece of cheesecake one night for dessert, or do pizza night one night. We do cinnamon roll Sunday. Every Sunday we do cinnamon rolls. That's sort of our deal. So every Sunday morning we do like bacon, eggs, and cinnamon rolls. So it allows you to be flexible without being psychotic. But you got to get to that point, otherwise that cinnamon roll is going to throw you right back out of ketosis. You got to build some time in that. So metabolic flexibility, there's two kinds of fuel. You can either burn fat for fuel, which is like, it's like having a hybrid car that can either use electricity, and I'm not going to get into the electrical car debate here, but just for my analogy, you can either use electricity for fuel, or this is like kerosene, your cars, or diesel, or whatever your crummy type dirty oil is. So carbohydrates, most people eat so many carbohydrates, they literally are complete total carb sugar burners. They get cravings if they haven't eaten for 3 or 4 hours. They get hangry. Anybody know anybody gets hangry? That's a sugar burner because their insulin starts to peak and their blood sugar drops and they get so just famished. We are designed to go days with no food. Do you realize that? We're still hunter-gatherers. Our genes haven't changed for 20,000 years. Our genes have actually changed 0.004% in the last 10,000 years. So we're still the same loincloth wearing, spear chucking hunter-gatherer that we were like 10,000 years ago. But we live in this fast food society where you walk into like a Twice Dailies and you got enough food that could feed like a village in the past for years, right? all you want. How did we get sugar when we were hunter-gatherers?
Fruit.
A little bit of fruit. It was seasonal, so you get a little bit in the summer, but then kind of went away for a while. And then honey, which you'd have to climb a tree and you'd have to fight like bees that are trying to kill you in order to get like a little bit of honey. So it wasn't like you walk into the store and get whatever you want. So it's the capacity of us to adequately respond to changes in the nutritional input and energy demand. So the name of the game is becoming metabolically flexible. And it's really simple. So the basis of our diet, just food by God. Food that looks similar to the way that God made it when He made it, right? So it's similar, fruits, veggies, meat, a little bit of nuts and seeds here and there. That's sort of the basis of the primary basis of the diet. So intermittent fasting. Anyone here done intermittent fasting? You have?
I'm doing it right now.
You doing it now?
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Great.
You feel great. I know. That's the thing that people don't understand is when you go long periods of time without food, it forces your body to use fat for fuel, and then your body actually preferentially likes to use fat for fuel. Your brain would rather use ketones or fat than it would rather use sugar. So some of the benefits of intermittent fasting, you have your decrease in insulin, and insulin is a bear. There's a new thing that these type 1 diabetic kids are doing. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, where they're actually using a little bit less insulin. So they're purposely, have you seen a type 1 diabetic? Like those kids are usually skinnier, they have trouble keeping weight. It's not like a type 2 diabetic. They have a problem with the beta cells in the pancreas, so their body cannot produce enough insulin, so they have to take insulin. So what they're actually doing is they're doing like a insulin-based anorexia. It's diabetic bulimia is what they're calling it, or something like that. So they'll purposely take less insulin. Their blood sugar goes sky high, like critical sky high, but they stay thin. So insulin is actually what transports the food we eat into the cells and makes us fat. So the key with a healthy person is to have as little insulin in the bloodstream as humanly possible. The more insulin you secrete in a lifetime, the shorter your lifespan. That's already a known fact. So decreases insulin, insulin growth factor, and leptin. Leptin is that hormone that tells us to burn fat. So literally leptin's telling your body, burn fat, burn fat, burn fat. But we eat so many carbohydrates, it's like, burn fat, burn fat. Our body can't hear the signal because we've overrun all those receptors. Increased ketones, adipopectin, and ghrelin. Ghrelin is the satiety hormone. Or ghrelin is the hunger hormone. The CPK is the satiety hormone. Increased insulin sensitivity, ketone body production, decreases insulin growth factor levels. In the intestines, it reduces your energy uptake, reduces inflammation, and reduces cell proliferation. What does that sound like in the intestines? Cellular proliferation. Yep, and colon cancer. So when cells tend to proliferate and subdivide and redivide and then mutate, that's where we get a thing called colon cancer. So it helps to reduce the risk factors for that. Brain increases cognitive function, increases neurotropic factors, increase stress resistance, and reduces inflammation. And you'll see a key with a lot of these is the reducing inflammation. It's in almost all of the cells of our body. In the heart, reduces resting heart rate, blood pressure, increases stress resistance. In fat cells, it increases lipolysis, which is where your body actually pulls fat from the fat cell and uses that for fuel. That's one thing triggered by intermittent fasting. Reduces leptin, increases adipopectin, and reduces inflammation. And it also increases a thing called autophagy. Have you ever heard of autophagy? It's your body's cellular repair and cleanup system. So when your body takes a cell in and kills it, like Pac-Man kind of chewing up the old dead cells, it increases that process. So when our mitochondria or other cells become dysfunctional, they're supposed to die and then be taken out. The problem is they stay functional and they stay active and they start craving carbohydrates because they're damaged, so we don't have that cell turnover. And then increased insulin sensitivity, increased efficiency of muscle, and then also reduces inflammation. So how do we do that? How did you do your intermittent fasting? What's your eating window?
From like 1 to 7.
Okay, so you have a 6-hour eating window. That's ideal. So you want to eat your food within a 6-hour window. Now for some people are like, you got to be kidding me. I don't want to eat a 6-hour window. So you start with 8 or 10, or some people have to start with 12. So you eat your food in a larger window, and then over time you eventually shorten that window down. Now for some people that want to go headlong into the process, if you want to start with a 6 or 8 hour window right out of the gate, you're going to have to take like an electrolyte supplement to avoid what they call the keto flu. So when your body's trying to kind of transform fats into fuel, you're going to have to do we have a green drink, and then I also use those little packets of like a sugar-free, I have one in my briefcase, that actually helps to curb a lot of those cravings, because you get these mineral imbalances and magnesium deficiencies, so you want to make sure you balance that with electrolytes. And then the key with intermittent fasting is your first meal when you come out of ketosis, which would be your breakfast or your break fast. For me, that's at 1 o'clock. So I normally do my first meal about 1, and then I try to eat my last meal about 8, sometimes 9, depending. So I'm in about a 6, 7, sometimes 8 hour window. The first meal needs to be low carb, low sugar, and mostly meat and veggies. So that first meal I'll do like a salad with grilled chicken and balsamic vinaigrette and some olive oil. So healthy fats and a little bit of healthy protein and mostly vegetables. And then that'll allow you to get food but still stay in ketosis. Because if we eat too much with that first meal, if you eat a burger and fries when you come out of your fast, then you're right out of ketosis. You're overfilling the liver, sugar's flying through the bloodstream, and you're back to fully a sugar burner for the rest of the day. So it's still better than not doing the fasting, but you can extend that and then have your worst meal of the day in the evening. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
So is that a daily thing, or is that like so many days in a row and then?
Yeah, well, it's intermittent. So there's days where you can come out of it. I think for most people initially, they have to do at least 6 to 8 weeks where they're pretty tight with it. Because you do that cinnamon roll Sunday on week 3 and you're not ready, it'll set you back quite a bit. So you have to give your body time to reset the insulin receptors and to get good at mobilizing ketones for fuel. So it just takes a little bit of time. You sound anxious. You look anxious.
Don't dare ask.
Please. No is the answer to that question. I know exactly what are you going to ask?
No, tell me.
Can we drink wine?
Oh, no.
Oh.
As long as it's between 1 and 7, right?
Ish. Once you're metabolically flexible.
I'm okay with stopping my wine at 7 o'clock. Can I have coffee before 1?
Can you have what?
Coffee
Yes.
before 1.
Yeah. Yeah, I do coffee every day.
A piece of cake.
Right. It's not that hard. And a lot of people say, I skip breakfast anyway, right? Yeah, so I do and caffeine is actually a little bit of caffeine. I want to be careful with this. A little bit of caffeine is actually good for you in the morning because it helps to stimulate the metabolism, helps to mobilize, it increases that lipolysis, so it gets your body kind of going and gets the fat burning sort of increased. You just don't want to keep drinking coffee throughout the day, which I do sometimes, but you want to cut it off, after a couple hours. But yeah, that's pretty much my coffee. I do stevia, I do coffee, and then I do a little bit of sometimes I use some unsweetened creamer if I really just want something, but then that has its other sort of issues. But mostly black coffee with just a little bit of stevia. Or you could do tea. Yeah, just anything that doesn't have calories, sugar, dairy. That's what you want to try to avoid. So the venti latte from Starbucks is a no-no. And you'll be amazed too, once you get into ketosis, your body, you just don't have the same cravings for some of that junky food that you did anymore, because your body just doesn't really go after those things. Any other questions on intermittent fasting? You guys can all do it, please.
Just with the goal with ketosis, or I kind of know what it is by definition, but is it a goal that we're really trying to stay there? We're not trying to stay in full blown.
You want to stay in some degree of therapeutic ketosis for the short term, and for some people that's 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks if it's a tougher case. You do want to stay in a consistent degree of therapeutic ketosis, and then that gives you the ability to kind of cycle in and out of ketosis without ruining the metabolic flexibility.
Is the point of getting in ketosis generates or kind of starts the metabolic you'll
Correct.
never get there without getting to ketosis first?
You generally have to spend some time in ketosis before you're going to reach a level of metabolic flexibility. Because you got to train your body to use fat for fuel.
Is it a somewhat direct correlation? The longer you stay, the more flexible you become?
Generally, yes. Yep. But you know, you have 5 straight cheat meals in a row, or 5 just let it rip days. You're gonna kind of not start all the way back over. But I'll notice if I go, like we went out of town on vacation and I ate like garbage for a week, and then I came back to work on you guys and felt terrible for about 3 days. Sorry. But it took me about a week to kind of get back on track. But it's like building a muscle. Like once you sort of do it once, you can get back to it pretty easily. But I don't want to feel the way, because when I start getting out of ketosis, I'm more fatigued. I get a little more kind of headachy, cloudy vision. It's just lights aren't as bright. Music doesn't sound as good. Like everything's just bleh. So I much prefer to stay in ketosis or in some variation. So this triad of health, this is kind of the direction that we're moving the practice. So obviously nervous system is the key because your brain is the master control system in the body. And then we have your gut health, which is hugely important because 80% of your immune system is in your gut. It communicates back and forth with the nervous system. And then we also have that thing called metabolic flexibility. And the thing is, these all play off of each other. So the nervous system affects the gut, and vice versa, and the metabolism affects the nervous system and vice versa. So really with the nervous system, we have, if you guys are regular patients and you come in, you do your home care and you're regular with your care, the keystone of that is corrective chiropractic care. We'll touch on that in just a quick moment. And then also things like breathing exercises and meditation and just taking time to kind of calm things down, shut the world off, turn off Netflix, and just allow your body to kind of reset. So that's mainly nervous system related. Gut health comes down to eliminating toxins and eliminating the bad foods. And then there's a gut repair process that we're going to be rolling out in the next couple of months where it actually repairs the gut through like a detox and rebuild process. And then metabolic flexibility. So that's your hormones. Because you guys know what your master hormone is in the body? Cortisol is a big one. Insulin. Insulin is considered your master hormone because all of your other hormones sort of play off of your insulin receptors and insulin sensitivity. So progesterone, testosterone, thyroid stimulating hormone, all of those play off of what your insulin, if your insulin's out of whack, you don't have a chance of keeping the other ones in whack. It's just not, they just play too much with each other. And then the other things with that are exercise, which is what we did on our last. So go back and watch the last video where we talked about exercise. Drinking plenty of water. So there's a lot of factors that sort of subcategorize those, but those are the 3 main things. If we fix those 3 things in most Americans, or we improve those 3 things in most Americans, what do you think happens to diabetes and obesity and Alzheimer's disease and heart disease and cancer and acne and autoimmune disorders and ADHD and autism? I mean, who knows, right? There's no limit to what people can do because your body's designed to be healthy if we just give it what it needs to be healthy. We have a ChiroThin program. So if you feel like you need some assistance, help, coaching, some guidance, some accountability with implementing some of these processes, we have a program. It's a 6-week program, no drugs, minimal to no exercise, and it uses real food. And you can use this shake, but you don't have to buy like the Weight Watchers type shakes. It's real stuff. So it's doctor supervised, so we meet with you either over the phone or on Zoom once a week. We kind of talk with you. When you come in, there's no injections, behavioral and dietary modifications. There's 2 supplements that we use. So they're the proprietary formula, these drops that we use, which have amino acids and B vitamins and a lot of things that they don't want to list on here because it's proprietary, but it helps to suppress the appetite and to mobilize fat into the bloodstream. And then the other supplement that you take before the meals helps to buffer the insulin response. So you take those pills before your 2 meals. It's African green mango and green tea extract. So it's basically a combination of B vitamins, herbal, and other supplements. I can't even list all the ones that are in there. But it helps to increase insulin sensitivity, supports leptin and adipopectin levels. Weekly supervision, and it is safe as long as you don't have active cancer or you're a child or you're someone who is pregnant or breastfeeding, then it's appropriate for just about everybody. And then suppresses the appetite, kind of the main keys of what it does. It helps to suppress the appetite, so it makes it easier to move into ketosis, to move into metabolic flexibility. Because a lot of people, if they just do it on their own, they will cave to the hunger. It just takes like a week of struggle and then they kind of fold. So this helps to speed that up, reduces absorption of dietary fat, fat cell reduction, and it reestablishes new set points for your BMI and your BMR. Your BMI is your body mass index. Most people know that one. Your BMR is your basal metabolic rate, which is how many calories you burn per day doing nothing. So most people have what's called a set point. Whatever your lifestyle's done to this point has gotten us to basically what we call a set point, which is I can eat whatever I want and I might gain a few pounds, but I don't gain much. Or I diet all the time and I lose like 3 pounds, but I kind of get stuck, right? It's kind of like your body wants to be at a certain weight. That's because it's at a metabolic set point, because your basal metabolic rate is set to burn X number of calories per day. So the goal of this is to reestablish a new set point. So the way it works, by the way, traditional weight loss can be toxic. Daily injections can be much more expensive. Let's get through some of this. So it's 2 meals per day. So you do basically a lunch and a dinner for most people. So you eat your food within a 6 to 8 hour window. And lean protein, and I don't really care so much that it's lean, veggies, fruits, and there is a little bit of bread that's allowed, which I would prefer you not use the bread, but it's like Melba toast. It's certain kinds of bread. It's not Wonder Bread. And then low glycemic index, and it's extremely anti-inflammatory. So for most people when they start this, within the first week, they generally lose 3 to 5-ish pounds, and they typically feel better. Their digestion starts to improve. They tend to have more energy. They tend to sleep a little bit better, literally within the first 3 to 5 days for most people. Some people are a little bit tougher. This is a typical ChiroThin meal. So you have like your egg roll in a bowl, which is one of my favorites, like sauteed meat with veggies, shrimp, and then you have, I'm not sure what that is. That's meat and salad. Meat and veggies. Meat, veggies, fruit. 4 ounces of meat, 4 ounces of protein, or 4 ounces of meat, 4 ounces of veggies, and 4 ounces of fruit. And then there's tons of free veggies that you can mix in to bulk up the meals. So for most people, they can't even finish all the stuff that they make. Like it's more food than you would ever imagine you would ever be able to eat, because you're adding cabbage and bell peppers and things that actually bulk up the meals and curb the hunger. So it involves an initial consultation where we do a health history, BMI calculation. We do your measurements, kind of do a pre and post. If you allow us to, we'll do a pre-picture. And then at the end, we'll do a post picture. It's entirely up to you to share it on all of our social media. A 42-day supply. And so there's basically a loading phase. So for the 2 days before you start the program, you do a loading phase where you try to eat at least 5,000 calories per day for 2 days, which for some people sounds disgusting and other people sound like a big party, right? It ain't that fun. Why in the heck would you eat 5,000 calories, and it doesn't even really have to be good calories? Like if you want to eat a pizza, sure.
What does that do?
That's a great question. Anybody else thinking that? Like, why would you eat 5,000 calories of garbage food?
Yeah.
So it spikes, it causes the liver to upregulate the metabolism. To process all that food, your metabolism literally skyrockets to get through all those calories. And then on day 3, when we drop the bottom out of those calories, then your metabolism tends to stay really revved up. And then we add the drops and the pills and things that help to stabilize that high level metabolism. So your BMI increases in those first 2 days when you're piling, which again sounds fun, but on day 2 when you're scarfing down like your 5th bowl of cereal, you're like sweating, it's not that fun, right? But we'll show you easier ways to do it. Like macadamia nuts are amazing. Like a cup of those has like 1,500 calories. So there's ways to do it easy. You snack throughout the day. The better you load, the better you lose. Because I've had people say, yeah, I got to about 3,000 calories on those 2 days. I think I'm fine. I was full. And they don't lose as much for the next 6 weeks. So the better you load, the better you lose. So you got to plan this when you're
How much weight do you gain between those 2 days? That's what my concern.
not much. I mean, you might gain a pound or maybe 2. But in the grand scheme of things, for most people, 40 years of terrible eating, 2 more days ain't going to kill us. If it's strategic to rev up the metabolism, like it's not going to be the end of the world. And then for most people too, the benefit of that is you don't want to eat anything for the first 3 days. So like there's really no hunger because you just gorged yourself for 2 days. And then we give you an instruction, everything you need is all in here. So there's an instruction manual that walks through all the nuances of how to, what not to. There's about 60-some page of recipes that are actually pretty amazing. We have a Facebook group that you can log on to, which has even more recipes and pictures of how to do it. And then you do a daily food and weight journal. And you want to make sure you're drinking at least 100 ounces of water per day. So you're drinking tons and tons of water because we have to flush out the system. One of the ways to reduce inflammation is to flood the body with pure, healthy water. So comparison-wise, like Weight Watchers is 12 weeks at roughly $300. This ChiroThin, it's $11.97, and don't freak out about the price. So it's for the 6 weeks. Nutrisystem is 12 plus weeks, $1,500. Jenny Craig is anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000. The problem is with these things, they give you, well, you know, I can have as many brownies as I want, but that takes away some of my points. They do like the point system with, is it Weight Watchers that does that mainly? And then Jenny Craig has all this prepackaged food, which nobody's going to keep doing forever. If you don't do it with real food, it's just a diet. You don't learn how to shop and cook and prepare and store and plan. You got to do that with real food. Otherwise, this is just going to come to an end. It's a diet, per se. This is Julie. She didn't have a lot to lose, but she did it with her husband who had more to lose, so she kind of did it in tandem to kind of help support him. But she lost 14 pounds, 18 inches in 6 weeks. And this is Gabe. He lost 31 pounds and 21 inches in 6 weeks. And then I could go on and on and on with these. So this is Sheila. She lost 29 and 29. So she lost 29 pounds, 29 inches in 42 days. She also did it with her partner as well, who lost, I think it was 25-ish pounds in 42 days. And then Bert lost 36 pounds. He had a little advantage. He was getting ready for his wedding, so he was very highly motivated. 36 pounds and 21 inches. And this is Michelle. She's one, if you go on our Facebook group, she's like our unpaid ChiroThin coach. She tells everybody about it. She does all the recipes. And she did hers because of her husband. Now, he'd been coming in for, 10 years. And I'd always been working on him like, man, we got to work on your diet. And he's like, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. I like my whiskey at night. Like, it's just not for me. And she would come in half a dozen times crying because she didn't want to lose her husband. Like, he was sleep apnea, blood sugar through the roof. Like, she knew the clock was ticking on how long she was going to have her husband. So he went full force, and this was a year and a half ago when they started, a little over a year and a half. It was January, I think, of 2021. And he lost over 70 pounds, and he's since kept that off. And he's become like the ChiroThin Nazi. Like, no, you can't eat that. That's not approved. So he's kind of more, and they do their cheat days. He still does a little whiskey every now and then, but now he's metabolically flexible, so he can live and play with his grandkids and has more energy, because that's what this is about. This is not about weight loss. It's about being who we're able to be, being who God called us to be. Because when you feel bad and you're tired and you're chugging down tons of medications every day and you're lethargic and don't have enough energy, then you're just not living to your potential. And I want to live long and die quick. That's the name of the game. I want to die young, as late as possible. That's the name of the game, right? And I've got a 1-year-old, and I'm 45. So that means by the time he's in high school or graduating high school, I'm going to be coming up on Medicare. So that means I'm going to have a big, tall, probably big dude living in my house, and I'm 65, and I can't have a man in my house that can beat me up. I just cannot. That is unacceptable. And I want to walk my daughter down the aisle, and I want to see his kids grow up too. Because I remember my daughter, she gave me probably the best compliment she's ever given me a few years ago. She said, Dad, I'm glad you're one of those in-shape dads. And I was like, wow, like she acknowledges that, you know, I'm taking care of my health for her. Not just for her. I'm a little narcissistic, so it's probably a little bit for me too. But, you know, I want to be there for my family. My wife was really sick for a couple years, and I can assure you that when you lose your health or when someone close to you loses their health, it affects everything. You don't care about the vacation or what kind of car you drive or how high gas prices are or what the last election did. When you're sick or your spouse is sick, it affects everybody in your life. It's so pervasive. What is it? A healthy man has 1,000 wishes and a sick man has but one. Mm-hmm. So true, because there's nothing you wouldn't give for your health. So the way we do this is most people save money when they're on this program. They usually buy less breakfast, so that saves money. They buy less junk food and snacks, so that saves money. Most people save $400 or $500 in the 6 weeks just from not buying all the extemporaneous garbage. So $11.97 if you want to do it today. Then we give you $100 off. And we'll walk you through it. And we do a 20-pound guarantee. Now, if you don't lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks, you do another round on us. We're so sure that it works the way it was supposed to work. If you don't lose the 20, now if you don't have 20 to lose, then you don't qualify. But if you have 20 to lose and you don't lose it within the 6 weeks, then we'll do another round on the house. So we'll kind of do that on us. And then this last thing, so a few takeaways before we get you guys out of here. So, eat in a 6 to 8 hour window. That's the name of the game. We can all do that. We can work up to that. It is doable. You will not die, I promise. Eat fresh fiber first. So, if you're not ready to do this and this is too overwhelming, then the one thing I would ask you is eat fresh fiber first. Eat whatever you want. If you want pancakes and bacon and hash browns for breakfast, wonderful. Eat an apple first. Eat some form of fresh fiber first. Cheeseburger and fries and a milkshake? Great. Eat a carrot first, right? So you got to eat the fresh fiber first. If you ate fresh fiber first and did that for an entire year, would your health be better this time next year? Absolutely. Could everybody in the room absolutely do that, right? But the problem is we think that it doesn't really matter that much. That's one of the big problems with our health. We just don't think it matters that much. And we've been marketed to death to believe that it really doesn't matter. You guys know like a Hershey Kiss? Of course we do, right? Little paper coming out, Hershey Kiss. On a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being it doesn't matter at all, and 10 being it's like life and death. Where does a little Hershey Kiss fall on that scale for you guys? For me, it's like a 2. Like 1 Hershey Kiss. Like a 2, 1, maybe a 3. What if I laced that little Hershey Kiss with arsenic? Colorless, tasteless, odorless arsenic, poisonous. Would you eat it? Where'd you put it on the scale now? 10. Would you give it to your kids? No, you wouldn't even give it to your neighbor, right? Because in a 2-second span of time, I just took that Hershey Kiss from a 1 or a 2 to a 10 just by changing how much it mattered to you. And that's how we have to start looking at this stuff. If we don't change how much our health matters and how much our food matters and how much exercise matters, my goal from this is to take however much your health matters and move it up just 1 notch. If your health matters to you at a 5 right now, if you leave here today and now you're at a 6, mission accomplished. That's all I want, just incremental change in the right direction. Eat food based on how you feel after, not during. So everybody eats that food, it's so great going down, right? Oh, so yummy. But how do you feel afterwards? I've never in 20 years heard somebody say, oh, I should have never eaten that salad. Or oh, that grilled chicken and steamed broccoli was, ugh. But we say that after a burger and fries and half a pizza, right? So eat food based on how it makes you feel after, not during. Get out of breath daily, every day. Just reach that point where you get out of breath. You don't have to stay there for an hour. Just get to where you're out of breath. And if some people aren't exercising, that's like going to the mailbox, right? You get out of breath pretty easy. So the trick is getting out of breath once a day. Drink half your body weight. And I should have specified that's water, not bourbon or beer or wine. It's half your body weight in ounces per day. That's doable. Some people say, I don't like water. Water tastes yucky. If you're over the age of 5, if you're no longer in kindergarten, you can't use the water tastes yucky excuse anymore. Like that one's gone. Like we're all big boys and girls. Like we just got to start drinking water. If you want to put lemon in it, fantastic. Get adjusted regularly. I truly believe if you're not under regular chiropractic care, you cannot be healthy. Or you can't be as healthy as you could be and reach your potential if you're not under regular chiropractic care. Because if your nervous system isn't firing at full potential, if your nervous system's interfered with, if your body's not functioning to a peak level, you're just not going to be as healthy as you could be. So I've seen that over and over and over. Practice gratitude. I try to bookend my day with gratitude. So every morning and every night when I get up and before I go to bed, I try to focus on the things in my life that really matter. My kids, my family, my wife, my practice, my faith, the team I have, that gives me so much joy, and it changes. Your body cannot be in anxiety and gratitude at the same time. It's physiologically impossible. You can't be in depression and gratitude simultaneously. The brain just can't do it. And if you have trouble finding gratitude, just know that there's 1 million families in Egypt that are living on a trash dump. They're raising their kids on a trash heap. 1 million families every year in Egypt raising their kids on a trash heap. So there's so many people that have it so much worse than we do. It's better to look down the ladder than to look up the ladder, comparing people above us to what they have versus, and the best thing is to get off the ladder and just realize we're all human beings and we all have struggles and we all do things imperfectly, but having gratitude. And then lastly is being an example. Because people say, well, what about the kids? Like, what do I do about the kids? Well, with kids or grandkids, you can't ask your kids to do something you're not willing to do. We just can't. We can't ask them to stop doing something we're currently doing. We have to be the example. And that's the thing. If we want to leave a legacy, I want my legacy to be that he was active and he was fun. He was not a rocking chair grandparent. I don't want to be bathed by a stranger and stare at a tray full of pills every day. Like, nobody wants that. But the problem is that's how a lot of people end up. But if we make those changes, it can happen. It can go in the other direction. So, all right, guys, thank you so much, and God bless.